Liam Mercer never imagined that heartbreak could be so silent. One night, just 6 days before their wedding, Callista kissed him lightly on the cheek and left for dinner with her friend. She never came back. No fight, no warning, no note. By midnight, her phone was dead. By dawn, her apartment was empty, the curling iron still plugged in, her favorite navy slip dress gone. For a man who had built empires out of precision and control, this was chaos in its cruelest form. Liam sat alone in their perfectly curated Bel Air villa, staring at the $250,000 engagement ring still resting on the counter, his phone buzzing with worried calls and half-truths. Humiliation wrapped itself around him like a second skin, not just personal, but public, as whispers leaked into tabloids. Did the billionaire fiancé drive her away? It wasn't just a broken engagement. It was an implosion of trust, love, and everything Liam thought defined his life. Before we dive into today's story, take a moment to share where you're watching from. We love seeing how our stories bring people together from every corner of the world. Your thoughts and comments are what make this community so special, and we're truly grateful to have you here. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story filled with drama, resilience, and unexpected twists. Now, settle in, get comfortable, and maybe grab your favorite drink, because this is a tale you won't want to miss. Let's get started. The navy slip dress was the last thing Liam Mercer remembered. It clung to Callista like a whispered promise as she leaned in, kissed his cheek, and laughed softly. Don't wait up. 6 days. 6 days until the wedding of the decade, the event LA's elite had been counting down to for months. The Chateau Belladonna venue had been booked for nearly a year, the Michelin-starred menu chosen, the guest list finalized with the kind of scrutiny typically reserved for IPO launches. Liam had signed the contracts, written the checks, overseen the custom ring design. $250,000 for the diamond Callista had sketched herself, inspired by her grandmother's heirloom. And yet, in one single evening, it all shifted. By midnight, Liam was pacing the marble floors of his Bel Air villa, phone pressed to his ear, straight to voicemail. Again. "Hey, it's me. Just checking in. Let me know you're okay." He tried not to hear the tightness creeping into his own voice. He texted Rachel, Callista's best friend. "Is she still with you?" Rachel replied quickly. "She left early. Said she had a headache. Thought she was heading home." Liam felt his gut pull tight. He checked her apartment. Nothing. The door unlocked, the curling iron still plugged in, the faint scent of her perfume in the bathroom, an overnight bag missing. He called the hospitals. Nothing. Police? They took a report but gently reminded him, "She's an adult. Maybe she just needed space." Space. The word rattled around his head like an insult. By dawn, Liam sat at his dining table, elbows on the cool surface, the Cartier ring box in front of him. The house was silent, the city stretching out below, its hum a cruel reminder that the world moved on, whether your life fell apart or not. This wasn't just heartbreak. This was humiliation. The press hadn't picked it up. Yet. But Liam knew better. In his world, nothing stayed private for long. One missed gala, one canceled vendor, and the whispers would begin. The billionaire golden boy who couldn't hold on to his fiancée, the tech mastermind undone by love. It wasn't the headlines that terrified him. It was the image, seared into his mind, Callista walking out the door, kissing his cheek, wearing that dress, and leaving him with a life they'd built together, now a hollow shell. By mid-morning, his assistant Ivy called, her voice cautious but steady. "Liam, do you want me to postpone the site visit at the Belladonna today?" He closed his eyes. Yes, cancel everything. He meant the visit, the fittings, the cake tasting, the floral walkthrough. But Ivy, sharp as ever, understood. Cancel it all. The first domino fell with the venue. The $600,000 deposit was non-refundable. The caterer kept $150,000. The custom floral installation, a $75,000 cancellation fee. Liam signed off on each, steady-handed, unflinching. It wasn't about the money. It was about control. He wouldn't let this spiral on her terms. By the second evening, Rachel called, her voice shaking. "Liam, I swear, I don't know where she is. She didn't tell me anything. I'm scared for her." Have you talked to her mom?" Eleanor. The name tasted bitter in Liam's mouth. He hadn't yet. Eleanor Wren was the socialite queen of Bel Air, a woman who'd spent years curating a reputation that glittered as hard as the diamonds in her estate vault. She would know. He dialed. "Liam," the cool, perfect tone of Eleanor's voice. "We're aware of the situation. Please understand, Callista is under enormous pressure right now." Pressure. The word landed like a slap. "She's safe," Eleanor continued smoothly. "But I suggest you let the family handle this. She just needs quiet, not interference." Interference. By nightfall, the calls from tabloids had started. Sources close to the couple say tensions were high in the final weeks. Was the billionaire workaholic too cold for his beautiful bride-to-be? Liam didn't answer his phone that night. Instead, he sat in the dark of his living room, the city lights flickering outside the massive glass walls, the Cartier ring still in its box on the coffee table. His hand hovered over it for a long time. Then he picked it up and slipped it into his pocket. He had built companies from scratch, negotiated billion-dollar deals, held rooms in the palm of his hand, and now he was the man left behind, trying to figure out how his life had slipped out the door without warning. The next morning, the police called. "We found her." Liam's stomach dropped. "She's at an Airbnb near Lake Halloway. She's fine. She just said she needed space." The phrase slammed into him, hard and cold. Needed space. Not missing. Not harmed. Just gone. He wanted to laugh, or scream, or maybe both. Instead, he sat down, pulled his laptop closer, and opened a spreadsheet. The wedding budget stared back at him. Vendors, invoices, deposits, gifts, payments. He began listing what was recoverable and what was lost. 3 hours later, the list was done. It was brutal, but it was clean. Numbers didn't lie. People did. That afternoon, Ivy called softly through the intercom. "Liam, someone's here. She says it's urgent." He knew before he looked. Callista stood in the lobby, hair scraped back in a messy bun, face blotchy, wearing leggings and an oversized hoodie. No diamond earrings, no couture, just a hollow version of herself. "Liam," she whispered when he stepped out. "I'm sorry." His team pretended not to watch from behind the glass walls. "I panicked," she murmured, eyes glassy. "I didn't know how to tell you. I couldn't breathe." He felt the words hit his skin like rain on glass. Cold, sliding down without sticking. "You ghosted me, Callista," he said softly. "You ghosted your family. You ghosted everyone." I know. She reached out. He didn't move. "I just needed time." He shook his head, slow and tired. "You took it." She froze. "The wedding's off," Liam said simply. She stared at him, a flicker of shock breaking through her desperation. "You sold the ring?" she asked suddenly, voice small. He raised his brows. "It paid for the cancellation fees." Her mouth parted, breath sharp. "That was based on my grandmother's." "You walked away." The words landed like a closing door. She was shaking now. Please, Liam, don't end it like this. He met her eyes, steady. It ended the night you left. Later, after the building emptied, Liam stood in his office alone, gazing out over the city. The spreadsheet waited on his desk, every loss catalogued, every number accounted for. Somewhere, on the other side of Bel Air, Callista was unraveling, and for the first time in days, Liam felt something new slip into his chest. Not anger, not heartbreak, clarity. The first crack of light through the wreckage. Liam Mercer hadn't slept in 40 hours. The suite's blackout curtains were drawn tight, but morning forced its way through anyway, tracing sharp lines across the marble floor. Liam sat at the edge of the leather couch, shoulders rounded, phone in one hand, the other pressed over his mouth, thumb digging hard into his cheek. His jaw ached from clenching. She was gone. That was no longer speculation or panic or a bad night of overthinking. It was fact. The Los Angeles Police Department confirmed it 2 hours ago. Callista Wren had checked herself into an ultra-luxury Airbnb cabin at Lake Halloway, 2 hours north, a hideaway known for its no-questions-asked service for A-listers and CEOs. The place specialized in shielding the powerful from their own disasters. Discreet staff, private chef, no press. According to the officer, she was, well, relaxed and requested not to be disturbed. Not missing. Not harmed. Just absent. Liam let the words scrape across his mind like sandpaper. When they'd first told him they found her, a burst of adrenaline had lit through his chest. He had imagined the worst. A car accident, an ER visit, an abduction. But the reality they handed him was somehow worse. She left because she wanted to. He stood abruptly, pacing across the room. His socks skidded on the polished floor. He ran both hands through his hair, feeling the dry tangle at the roots. On the kitchen counter, his phone lit up again. Rachel. 5 missed calls. He swiped it away. He wasn't ready. Then another name flashed. Eleanor Wren. His stomach flipped. He hesitated, then answered. Liam. Her voice was silk over steel, perfectly composed, shaped by years of society events and charity galas, interviews where every word mattered. I wanted to reach out personally, Eleanor continued. We heard from the police. We understand this is distressing. Understatement. I want you to know, she went on, that Callista is fine. She just needs time. Time, Liam echoed, voice low. Yes, she's been under extraordinary pressure. Planning, media, expectations. It's been a lot. Liam felt his fingers tighten around the phone. Eleanor, he said. She left 6 days before the wedding, without a word. There was a faint, polite pause. She needs quiet, Eleanor said softly. I think it's best you give her space. Please trust me on this. And just like that, Liam was out. The conversation ended with a flawless goodbye. Eleanor had politely but unmistakably carved him out of the crisis, drawing a thin, cold circle around her daughter. The implication was clear. You may be a billionaire, but this is family business now. He sat, heavily, elbows on knees, head in his hands. He was being erased, not just from the relationship, from the narrative. By afternoon, the first headlines hit the gossip blogs. Runaway bride, or runaway billionaire. Sources close to the couple hint at tensions before the big day. Liam scrolled through the articles, fingers trembling slightly. Anonymous insiders, likely fed by Eleanor, whispered about workaholism, emotional distance, cold perfectionism. Not a word about Callista's unannounced disappearance. Not a word about the luxury hideaway. To the outside world, it looked like a relationship that had quietly collapsed under its own weight, not like he'd been abandoned without a single explanation. Across the room, Ivy Crane hovered, arms crossed, watching him. She'd been his assistant for 5 years, seen him close million-dollar deals, navigate boardroom ambushes, shut down competitors with a smile. She had never seen him like this. "Liam," she said cautiously, "do you want me to step in? Put out a statement?" He shook his head. "No." Her brow furrowed. "We can control the narrative," she tried. "At least soften it." He looked up at her, exhaustion lining his face. "I'm not interested in spin," he said quietly. That night, the house was silent, except for the occasional buzz of his phone. Liam sat at the kitchen island, laptop open, a blank spreadsheet on the screen. The Cartier ring box sat next to it, unopened. One hand rested lightly on the velvet. He began typing. Venue deposit, $600,000, non-refundable. Catering contract, $150,000, lost. Florals, $75,000. Cancelled, minus penalty. Dress fittings, photographer, band, lighting, design team. Each number a cold, hard bruise. He scrolled down to the line that read, honeymoon, Maldives, prepaid, non-refundable, $500,000. His chest tightened. His finger hovered over the keyboard. Then he added, paid by Wren family. Eleanor, personal check. He exhaled slowly. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't spin. They just sat there, honest, brutal, undeniable. The next morning, Ivy stepped into his office, laptop under one arm. "Something's off," she said. Liam looked up. She placed her laptop on the desk and angled it toward him. "I ran the company card expenses for the last 6 months," she said. "Not snooping, just looking." He leaned forward, frowning. Hotel charges, private jet bookings, restaurant bills, spa treatments, not in Liam's name, not in Callista's directly, but linked to events, to supposed vendor meetings, to weekends when Callista had said she was scouting venues or coordinating with suppliers. "I thought you should see this," Ivy said quietly. Liam's stomach turned. That evening, Liam attended an art gala, a commitment he couldn't avoid. He put on the tuxedo, the watch, the public face. He smiled, shook hands, posed for photos, and then, in the middle of the swirl, he saw Cor Wilde, Varen Holt's boyfriend. Cor looked wrecked, thin, distracted, nursing a glass of wine with trembling fingers. Varen Holt, Liam's best friend. Cor caught Liam's eye. There was a flicker of something, hesitation, pain, then a rush of impulse. He crossed the room. "I'm sorry," Cor blurted, voice low, breath sharp. "I didn't mean... I can't believe they lied to both of us." Liam froze. "Both of us." "What do you mean?" he asked, carefully, quietly. Cor's eyes were glassy, wet. "They were together, Liam," he whispered. "Callista and Varen." For a second, Liam's vision narrowed to a pinpoint. That night, Liam drove home in silence. The house loomed ahead, cold and sleek and empty. Inside, he poured himself a drink. Something dark, sharp, expensive. He sat on the balcony, the city sprawled below, the Cartier box still waiting on the counter behind him. He should have felt fury. He should have felt heartbreak. Instead, for the first time, he felt clarity. He saw the pattern now, the missing weekends, the careful deflections, the tension in Callista's eyes, the reason Eleanor was scrambling to keep him out. It wasn't just a runaway bride, it was betrayal. It was theft. It was a double life, and not just hers. Liam sat there, the cool air biting his skin, the night wrapping around him like a dare, and for the first time in days, he smiled. Small, hard, cold. They thought they'd walked away clean. They had no idea what was coming. Liam Mercer was never a man who lost control. By 34, he had turned a garage startup into a tech empire, sat on panels at Forbes summits, and navigated acquisitions that left older CEOs blinking in his wake. His world was one of calculated risks, ironed suits, and airtight contracts. But betrayal? Betrayal had slipped in where no audit, no balance sheet, no strategy meeting could have caught it. By Monday morning, the wedding was officially dead. The contracts had been canceled, one after the other, over the weekend. The Chateau Belladonna venue, $600,000 evaporated. The caterer, $150,000 gone. The luxury floral installation, $75,000 canceled with penalties. The band, the lighting, the photography, all dissolved into non-refundable oblivion. It wasn't the money, Liam told himself as he sat behind his desk at Mercer Technologies headquarters, staring at the spreadsheets Ivy had meticulously compiled. It was the humiliation. It was the fact that while he handled these logistics like a CEO salvaging a sinking ship, Callista Wren, his fiancée, his partner, the woman he'd promised the world, was hiding away at a luxury cabin, sipping wine and hiding behind her mother's carefully engineered public narrative. And worse, that Varen Holt, his best friend, the man who had stood beside him at every gala, toasted him at every milestone, watched football in his living room on lazy Sundays, was there in the background, playing both sides. "Sell the ring." Liam's voice was calm, almost unnervingly so when he said it to Ivy that morning. She hesitated. "The Cartier ring?" she clarified. He gave her a dry smile. "Unless there's another $250,000 diamond I'm forgetting about." She gave a small exhale, nodded, and left the room. That ring had been Callista's dream, custom designed, vintage inspired, sketched out on a napkin after a trip to Paris. She had fussed over the setting, the cut, the clarity. It had become a symbol, Liam realized now, of the pageantry they'd been performing. All surface, no foundation. He didn't go to the store himself. Ivy handled it, like she did everything these days. She returned later that afternoon, a simple folder in her hands. $130,000, she said quietly. They offered. He gave a clipped nod. Done. One more item off the list. The next day, he was in the middle of reviewing a product roadmap with his team when Ivy peeked into the glass-walled conference room. "Liam," she murmured, "you're going to want to step out." His brow creased. He excused himself, buttoning his blazer as he left the room. And there, in the lobby, in leggings, an oversized hoodie, hair scraped back, no makeup, skin blotchy from crying, was Callista. "Liam," she breathed when she saw him, stepping forward as though they were alone. They weren't. His entire executive floor was watching, pretending not to. He held up a hand. "Here? I didn't know where else to go." Her voice cracked. I panicked. I couldn't handle it all." He tilted his head slightly, studying her like he was studying a stranger. "You ghosted me. 6 days before the wedding. Not just me. Your family, your friends, your staff." "I know." Tears filled her eyes and she reached for him. "I was scared." He didn't flinch. "I canceled everything," Liam said quietly. "The wedding, the contracts, the vendors. I sold the ring." That stopped her. "What?" she choked. "You sold it? That ring was designed after my grandmother's—" "You walked away," he interrupted softly. "You forfeited it." Her mouth opened, then closed. "Please, Liam," she whispered, shaking. "Don't end it like this." He looked at her, tired, emptied out. "It ended the night you left." That night, Eleanor called. "Liam," she began smoothly, "we understand things have been difficult." He waited. "We'd like to discuss the Wren family contribution to the honeymoon," she continued. "As you know, it was a $500,000 personal check, and given the change in circumstances, we'd like to recover that." He gave a low, humorless laugh. The deposit was non-refundable. "Callista chose the resort herself." A pause. "Well, we feel that since the funds were not used as intended, I suggest you check your records, Eleanor," he said evenly. "I have them all." Her tone sharpened. "Liam, you are being very cold about this." "Cold," he repeated, voice flat. "Cold is disappearing without a word. Cold is making someone else carry the fallout." He hung up. But the worst, or maybe the most clarifying, moment came at the art gala. He hadn't wanted to go, but his presence was expected, and Liam Mercer never gave the press an easy opening. He walked in alone, cutting a sharp figure in black, the quiet, composed billionaire who had weathered public humiliation without a public meltdown. That's when he saw Cor Wilde. Cor was a familiar figure in their circle, talented, thoughtful, a little fragile, the kind of person people always underestimated. He was also Varen Holt's boyfriend, though never loudly introduced as such. Tonight, Cor looked frayed at the edges, glass of white wine trembling slightly in his hand, eyes rimmed red. When their eyes met, Cor hesitated. Then, as if something in him broke, he crossed the room. "I'm sorry," Cor blurted, voice low, shaking slightly. "I shouldn't. I can't believe they lied to both of us." Liam felt his stomach lurch. "Both? What are you talking about?" he asked carefully. Cor blinked hard, like the words were trying to fight their way out. "They're together, Liam," he whispered. "Varen. And Callista." For a second, everything narrowed. The noise of the room, the clink of glasses, the camera flashes, it all faded. The ground under his feet shifted. Later, back at the villa, Liam sat alone on the balcony, the city stretched out in glittering indifference below. He poured himself a drink, the ice clinking sharply, and set the glass down untouched. He thought about the hotel bills Ivy had shown him. Weekends when Callista was supposed to be working. Weekends Varen had been traveling for business. He thought about the diary page Cor had quietly handed him before slipping away. Am I in love with Liam or the life? Varen feels like escape. With Liam, I'm suffocating under perfection. He thought about the public image they'd all worked so hard to craft. The radiant bride, the loyal best friend, the perfect life. Gone. All of it. He closed his eyes and let the air move through him. He should have felt rage. He should have felt grief. But what settled in his chest was something colder, clearer, sharper. They thought they'd buried him. They had no idea. Liam didn't tell anyone what Cor had confessed that night. Not yet. He let Eleanor's carefully spun public relations campaign roll on. He let Callista's vague social media posts gather sympathy. He let Varen smile in photographs and sip cocktails, oblivious. And while they danced through their next moves, Liam prepared his... At his desk, Ivy laid out the paper trail. Hotel receipts, private jet invoices, spa charges, coded messages. Cor, quietly, slipped Liam more. Photographs, times, confirmations. This wasn't just an affair. It was months of calculated betrayal. And Liam's money had funded it. At one point, Ivy looked at him across the desk. "What do you want to do with all of this?" Liam tapped his finger once, twice, against the wood. I want them to walk into a room, he said softly, and realize it's already over. He met her eyes. And I want to be the one standing when they fall. That night, Liam stood at the window, watching the city lights pulse below. He thought about the people who had built their lives around his trust, and he thought about how quickly they'd mistaken his silence for surrender. But Liam Mercer hadn't survived billion-dollar negotiations by lashing out. He'd survived by waiting, and striking only when the room was quiet. As he stood there, the Cartier ring gone, the wedding erased, the headlines still swirling, Liam felt something shift inside. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was clarity. It was purpose. And for the first time since Callista had walked out the door, Liam Mercer smiled, slow, cold, and sure. They had no idea, but they were about to learn. For days, Liam Mercer watched the city move around him as if his life hadn't been split open. Morning sunlight touched the glass edges of his Bel Air villa. The staff came and went in hushed tones. News alerts pinged about the tech markets and celebrity headlines. From the outside, Liam was fine. He was working, running meetings, issuing polished statements to the press. But inside, the center had cracked. He wasn't unraveling. He was calculating. It was Core Wild who became the first unexpected thread. They met quietly, away from the gala crowd, away from cameras, at a private corner of a rooftop bar that only their circles knew. Core arrived alone, head low, fingers nervously twisting the stem of a glass. "I didn't know who else to tell," Core said, voice thin. He looked wrecked. Designer sweater stretched, dark hair mussed, eyes rimmed red. Liam had seen the headlines by then. Varen Holt, celebrity art dealer, gracing yet another Who's Who feature. A drink in hand, a smirk for the camera, Callista Wren often spotted near him, always just close enough to be noticed, never close enough to be confirmed. Core didn't wait for Liam to ask. "I found a note," he whispered. "She left it at his place." He slid it across the table like it was something dangerous. Liam read, "Am I more in love with Liam or the life? Varen feels like escape. With Liam, I'm suffocating under perfection." For a moment, Liam stared down at the words, the handwriting he recognized, the sharp edges of each letter. He felt nothing, not the old grief, not even anger. Just a thin, hardening line down the center of his chest. By the next morning, Liam was in his home office. Ivy Crane seated across from him, her laptop open, a second screen flickering with spreadsheets, transactions, logs. She worked quickly, methodically, her blonde hair tied back, eyes sharp. "Look at this," she murmured, fingers tapping. "Hotel charges. They match weekends Callista said she was working on vendor site checks." Liam leaned in. "Private jet bookings, spa visits, restaurant bills." She pulled up another screen. "Then look here. Varen's gallery expense reports. Same weekends, same cities." He exhaled slowly, watching the pattern unfold like a puzzle clicking into place. "I think Eleanor's involved," Ivy added cautiously. His eyes flicked to her. Ivy hesitated only a second. "She's been sending quiet payments to staff, to vendors, to cover gaps. So that's why no one had spoken. Not a planner, not a designer, not a driver, because Eleanor Wren had buried the evidence with money. Meanwhile, the public story had started to bend. First, Liam had been cast as the cold, distant fiancé, the workaholic whose perfectionism drove his fiancée away. But then, quiet murmurs began. Whispers in the art world, in the event planning industry, in the socialite circles Eleanor had always ruled. Why were Varen and Callista showing up everywhere together? Why had Callista's luxury event firm lost 2 major brand deals overnight? Why were some of Varen's top clients backing away, softly, carefully, as if not wanting to get caught in something? Liam watched it happen with a strange, detached fascination. He didn't lift a finger. The narrative was starting to tilt on its own, but he was ready to push it. At one point, Ivy looked across the desk at him. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "I'm sure." The setup was almost elegant in its simplicity. The Everhart Foundation Gala was approaching, the crown jewel of the social calendar, a night of black tie power mingling, gallery curators, venture capitalists, philanthropists, and media figures. Varen and Callista were expected to appear, of course. Eleanor had likely coached them on how to make their debut as just friends, just colleagues, just two public figures moving through the same spaces. Liam, however, was planning something else. He and Ivy worked late into the night, assembling. Hotel invoices with date stamps, jet bookings, photos, some from Core, some from anonymous sources, communications logs, staff statements. He didn't leak anything to the press. He didn't post. He didn't threaten. He waited. Because Liam Mercer understood better than anyone. You don't win by fighting loud. You win when the room is full, the cameras are rolling, and your enemies are still smiling, right before the ground cracks beneath them. In the middle of this, there were moments Liam caught himself standing still, in the hallway of his home, or by the window, or in his office, and feeling a strange, hollow ache. Not for Callista, for the version of himself that had existed before this. The man who had loved without caution, without suspicion, who had believed in the story of them. That man was gone, and Liam mourned him, but only in passing. He had too much to do. 3 days before the gala, Core stopped by his office. He came up through the service entrance, hat pulled low. "I'm done with him," Core said quietly, sliding a flash drive across the desk. Liam didn't need to ask what was on it. "Why help me?" he asked instead. Core's smile was sad. "Because you're the only one who never pretended I didn't exist." Liam nodded once, tight. The night before the gala, Eleanor Wren called. Her voice was clipped, polished. "Liam," she said, "I assume you'll be at Everhart." "I will." "Good. I think it's time we move past all this." There was a faint, calculated pause. "For everyone's sake." Liam almost laughed. Eleanor had no idea the wrecking ball was already in motion. That night, after the call, Liam stood on his balcony, the cool air sharp in his lungs. Ivy came out, jacket pulled tight around her shoulders. "Everything's ready," she said softly. He nodded. They stood in silence a moment, the city humming below. Then Liam murmured, "Thank you." She smiled faintly. "I'm just glad you're still standing." The next day, Liam moved through his schedule like any other. Meetings, calls, emails, no sign, no hint, no crack in the surface, and beneath it all, the slow, measured beat of inevitability. He wondered, briefly, if Callista had any idea, if Varen was smugly imagining his victory lap. If Eleanor was sleeping soundly, thinking she had controlled the chaos. He let the thought pass. By tomorrow night, they would know. That evening, before he left the office, Liam checked his phone. A message from Core. "Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you." A message from Ivy. "We're set." He tucked the phone into his pocket, took one last look around the office, the place where he had built his empire, where he had once thought his friends were allies. His love was unshakable. His life was charmed. And then he left. Not for war, not for revenge, but for something colder, for precision, for ending it. The Everhart Foundation Gala was not just an event. It was a spectacle. It was where the old money elite and the Silicon Valley disruptors converged, where art dealers brushed shoulders with venture capitalists, where the guest list was curated months in advance and the press coverage was a given. It was tuxedos tailored within an inch of breathability, dresses flown in from Paris, vintage jewels on loan, and 5-figure table donations that were, of course, all for charity. Liam Mercer arrived alone. The flashes from the cameras outside hit him like they always did. Quick, sharp, indifferent. He adjusted his cufflinks, thanked the valet, and stepped inside. The air was cool, the scent of gardenias unmistakable, and the music, a live quartet, floated up toward the vaulted glass ceiling. His heart didn't race, his stomach didn't twist. He was past that. He saw them before they saw him. Varen Holt, Liam's former best friend, art world golden boy, dressed to kill, laughter too loud, hand too familiar on Callista's back. And Callista Wren, his ex-fiancée, breathtaking as always in a silver gown that shimmered with every step, her smile just a little too fixed, her glass of champagne never far from her lips. They floated through the crowd like a power couple in the making, and around them, the room pulsed with curiosity, polite, polished curiosity, the kind that disguised itself as admiration. Liam moved through it quietly. He greeted board members, shook hands with donors, exchanged a word with the Everhart director. Ivy hovered nearby, as composed as ever, alert without being obvious. Core arrived an hour in, blending at the periphery, a slim figure in black, eyes sharp. The pieces were all in place. By 10 o'clock, the room had begun to shift. The cameras were still snapping, but the speeches were over. The guests were on their second or third glasses, and the conversations had softened into a murmur. It was the perfect moment, when attention floated, when defenses dipped. Liam approached. He didn't need a spotlight. He needed timing. Varen turned first, laughter still fresh on his face, until his eyes landed on Liam. The smile faltered.
"Liam," Varen said, smoothing it back into place. "Didn't expect to see you." "Varen," Liam murmured, his voice quiet, steady. "Callista." She turned sharply at her name, color draining, smile freezing. "We should talk," Liam said simply, and set the folder, slim, matte, discreet, on the nearby table. They glanced at it, puzzled, until Callista's eyes flicked to the corner of the envelope. Her breath caught. Inside, hotel invoices, jet bookings, private photographs, messages, logs, Eleanor's payout records, all of it, neat, documented, undeniable. "I thought you should both know," Liam said softly. "I don't finance affairs." And then, he smiled, just a little. That's when the silence hit. Not loud, not immediate, but spreading, slow, like a crack across ice. A nearby collector, one of Varen's biggest backers, shifted, murmured to his wife. An influencer, camera half raised, hesitated, brows knitting. Callista's fingers tightened on her glass. Varen's jaw twitched, the practiced charm slipping just a fraction. And Core chose that moment to step forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slap or throw or cry. He simply walked up to Varen, eyes clear, steady. "We're done," he said quietly. "I was never your secret keeper." Varen opened his mouth, but Core was already turning, already gone. Liam stayed another half hour. He moved through the room with Ivy, calm, gracious, unbothered. He didn't need to gloat. The work was already done. He watched, out of the corner of his eye, as Varen's circle began to thin, as clients excused themselves, as patrons pulled back, as Callista gripped Eleanor by the arm, panic flashing in her eyes. The social implosion had begun. Liam just let it happen. By midnight he was home. The house was dark, the staff dismissed, the city lights spread below like scattered stars. He loosened his cufflinks, slipped off his jacket, and poured himself a drink. Ivy had texted before leaving. "You handled it like a king." Core had messaged, too. "Thank you for not making me collateral." Liam sat on the balcony, glass in hand.
the night air cool against his skin. For the first time in weeks, his chest felt light. Varen would spiral. Without his top clients, without his social leverage, the art world would turn on him with the same speed it once adored him. Eleanor's money couldn't buy that reputation back. Cor had already quietly left, taking half the circle of influence with him. Callista would scramble. Her luxury events business had been her future, her name, her reinvention. And now investors were backing away, sponsors were pulling out. The influencers she courted were ghosting her texts. Eleanor, furious, humiliated, would retreat. The queen of image, undone by the one thing she couldn't spin. And Liam? Liam had lost nothing that hadn't already walked out the door. He closed his eyes, breathing in the quiet. No lawyers. No threats, no front-page scandals. Just a folder on a table, a few quiet words, and the truth left in the open long enough to do its work. They had expected rage. They had expected collapse. What they hadn't expected was that Liam Mercer didn't break. He dismantled. Later that night, as the clock crept past 1, Liam checked his messages one last time. A text from Rachel. Just saw the fallout. Everyone knows now. You did it. He let the screen go dark. In the morning, the tabloids would run with it. But by then, Liam would already be moving forward. Not toward revenge, toward something cleaner, something real. He took a last sip, set the glass down, and exhaled. And for the first time, it didn't taste like defeat. It tasted like freedom. The knock at the door came just after midnight. Liam Mercer had been expecting it. He'd watched the headlines roll out all day. Whispers turned to confirmation. Confirmations turned to scandal. Every corner of Bel Air's elite circles was humming with one story. The collapse of Callista Wren and Varen Holt. Varen's biggest collectors had quietly severed ties. Cor Wilde had given a single devastating statement to an industry blog. There's a difference between being private and being a liar. Eleanor Wren's publicist had issued a sterile, trembling press release about family matters and deep regret. And Callista, once the woman people wanted to dress, befriend, and be, was a ghost on her own social feeds, her brand partnerships evaporating by the hour. So when the knock came, Liam only stood, slipped on a sweater, and walked to the front door. He opened it slowly. There she was. Callista stood in the rain, soaked through, her hair plastered to her cheeks, her silver heels in one hand like she'd walked barefoot half the way. She looked smaller than he remembered. She looked like someone who had been running and lost.
Liam,
she breathed, voice trembling.
please.
He didn't speak. She stepped forward, eyes wide, reaching. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I ruined everything. Please, don't let it end like this. For a long moment, he just watched her. The woman he had once planned a life with. The woman he had watched dismantle that life piece by piece. The woman who now stood in front of him, hollowed out by her own doing. He felt, faintly, the flicker of a memory. Callista laughing on a balcony in Italy, slipping her hand into his on a beach, rehearsing vows at midnight, eyes bright with the future. For a heartbeat, his chest ached. But it was gone as quickly as it came. I wish you peace, Callista, Liam said softly. But we are done. He didn't slam the door. He didn't raise his voice. He simply closed it, slow and final. By morning, the photos were everywhere. Billionaire shuts door on runaway fiancé's last plea. The final nail. Liam Mercer ends the Wren saga at his doorstep. Liam ignored them. He had other things to face. The call came mid-morning, a private number. He answered, distracted, still half reading an investor brief. Mr. Mercer? The voice on the other end was tight, unfamiliar. I'm so sorry to tell you this,
The words blurred together. Private plane, mechanical failure, sister, brother-in-law, no survivors. Liam sat back slowly, the breath leaving his body. And then, your nephew, Theo, he wasn't on the flight. By afternoon, 6-year-old Theo was on his doorstep, clinging to a stuffed bear, his face pale and bewildered. Liam knelt slowly, eye level, his throat tight. "Hey, buddy," he murmured. "Come here." Theo didn't cry. He just leaned in, small arms wrapping around Liam's neck, holding on with a quiet, fierce grip that nearly broke Liam in half. The house changed after that.
The sleek architectural showpiece became a home. Liam found himself setting aside contracts to read bedtime stories, stepping out of late meetings to answer a tiny, trembling voice on the phone, learning to pack lunchboxes, and remembering how to braid hair, because Theo's favorite stuffed rabbit needed it. He moved meetings earlier. He blocked off weekends. Ivy became not just his business partner, but the quiet, constant presence that kept the new version of his life running, sometimes with a memo, sometimes with a joke, sometimes by showing up at the door with groceries when he forgot. Cor sent a message once, soft and careful. "For what it's worth, you did more than survive. You saved yourself." The headlines faded. Varen vanished from public life, his reputation blacklisted, his network severed. Callista tried briefly to rebrand, influencer, speaker, wellness expert. But the collapse was too public, too complete. Eleanor retreated to Europe, her empire of image permanently cracked. But Liam thrived. His companies expanded, investors admiring not just his strategy, but his astonishing public grace. His social standing didn't just recover, it solidified, redefined, elevated. And at home, every evening, a small boy laughed on the lawn, chased by a golden retriever, the sound echoing against glass walls that once only knew silence. One night, months later, Liam stood at the edge of the yard, hands in his pockets, watching Theo dart through the grass, shrieking with joy as the dog leapt beside him. Ivy appeared at his side, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. "You know," she said softly, "for a man who was supposed to be broken, you're doing pretty well." Liam smiled faintly. "I didn't get broken," he murmured. "I got free." They stood quietly, the city shimmering below, the world turning. Liam let the peace settle into his chest, the weight of it real, earned, deserved. This was the life he hadn't planned. This was the life he'd built from the wreckage. And for the first time, he wouldn't trade it for anything. 6 months later, Liam Mercer stood barefoot on the balcony of his Bel Air villa, cradling a mug of black coffee, his eyes fixed on the early morning haze rolling in over Los Angeles. The city looked soft at this hour, a shimmering stretch of gold and silver, all sharp edges blurred. Inside the house, laughter echoed faintly. Theo was awake. The golden retriever Ivy had brought over one weekend, for the house, and maybe a little for you, barked playfully as the boy ran down the hallway, still in pajamas, stuffed bear trailing from one hand. Liam smiled without thinking. The past 6 months hadn't been easy. There were days grief hit him in unexpected waves, not just for the sister he'd lost or the brother-in-law who had been part of his life since college, but for the life he'd once thought was his. He grieved the man he had been, the man who believed in loyalty without suspicion, the man who thought love and trust were the same, the man who thought public grace meant private safety. But in their place, something sturdier had grown. He was no longer the Liam Mercer who had been left. He was the Liam Mercer who had stayed standing. The tabloids had moved on. Varen Holt was effectively blacklisted in the art world. His name no longer opened doors. It closed them. Patrons had walked away. Collaborators had withdrawn.
Without his client base or core at his side, he was just another fallen social figure clinging to old relevance. Callista Wren had tried, briefly, to re-emerge. There had been the Instagram posts, vague and softly lit, about healing and growth. There had been the podcast appearance where she spoke about overcoming pressure and losing herself in a version of success that wasn't real. But the audience didn't come. Sponsors didn't call. Investors didn't forgive. And Eleanor Wren? The queen of image had fled, first to the Hamptons, then to Europe, where her carefully maintained network shrank to whispers and polite refusals. The money was still there, but the influence was gone. The empire had cracked. Inside Liam's house, life looked very different now. His home office, once a glass and steel monument to efficiency, had a child's drawing tacked to the wall. A shaky crayon sketch of a man, a boy, and a very round dog. His dining table, once laid out for dinners with VCs and celebrities, now held tiny mismatched plates and sippy cups. And Ivy Crane, his once formal, sharp-edged assistant, was now his partner in every sense of the word. Not romantically, not yet, but as someone who had stepped up when everything fell, as someone who had helped him navigate grief, scandal, and guardianship without blinking, she had become family. The kind you choose. One afternoon, Liam sat on the porch steps, elbows on his knees, watching Theo play in the grass. "Uncle Liam!" Theo shouted, holding up a battered soccer ball. "Come on!" Liam laughed, shaking his head. "5 minutes," he called back. "Give me 5!" Ivy sank down beside him, handing him a water bottle. "You know you're going to have to go out there," she said, amused. "I know," Liam said, grinning. He fell quiet for a moment, watching the boy, the dog, the late sun stretching shadows across the lawn. "I didn't think this was how it would end," he said softly. Ivy nudged him lightly. "It's not the end," she said. "It's just not the story you expected." He exhaled, a slow, deep breath. "No," he murmured. "It's better." At night, when the house was quiet and Theo was asleep, Liam sometimes stood at the window, looking out at the city. He thought about how close he had come to losing himself, not to grief, but to the kind of bitterness that could calcify a man from the inside out. But he hadn't let it. Instead, he'd chosen to fight for custody, to rebuild his business, to protect his reputation with dignity, not destruction, to make a home, not just a statement. One night, Ivy found him on the balcony. She handed him a glass of wine, leaned against the railing beside him. "I got an email today," she said casually. "Oh? From Core?" Liam raised an eyebrow. "He said thank you." Liam smiled faintly. "For what?" "For proving you can walk through hell," she said, "and come out clean." Liam tipped his head back, eyes on the stars. "Not clean," he murmured. "Just clear." 6 months ago, they had all thought they knew who Liam Mercer was. The headlines had written him as a tragic figure. The industry had whispered about how hard he'd fall. Varen and Callista had assumed he'd break. But they'd all been wrong. Liam hadn't broken. He'd transformed. On a Saturday morning, as sunlight flooded the house, Theo clambered onto Liam's lap, holding a book upside down. "Read this one," he declared. Liam laughed, turning the book around. "All right, kiddo." As he read aloud, voice soft, words rolling into the stillness, he felt a kind of peace he hadn't known in years. Not the peace of success, not the peace of vindication, the peace of having nothing left to prove. The world outside could keep spinning. Let them chase the next scandal. Let them whisper about the next fall. Liam Mercer was here, with his nephew, his family, his business, his life, whole, quiet, unshakable. In the quiet after betrayal, there is a strange kind of space. At first, it feels like a void, raw, cold, echoing with the loss of what was once trusted and familiar. But slowly, as days stretch into nights and nights into mornings, that emptiness begins to take on shape.
It becomes something unexpected, a clearing. It's in this space that we come face to face with who we are when no one's watching. Not the version crafted for the public, not the image carefully held together by titles or rings or elegant facades. It's the unvarnished, unfiltered self, the one that stands when everything collapses. There's a truth that stories like this remind us of. No matter how fierce the betrayal, how public the fall, or how deep the wound, there is always a choice between crumbling or rebuilding, between clinging to revenge or stepping into quiet dignity, between defining yourself by what was lost or by what you choose to become next. We often think strength is loud, that it shows up as confrontation or public vindication, or proving the world wrong with a roar. But sometimes, real strength is the quiet act of reclaiming your own peace, of refusing to let another person's betrayal write your ending. In loss, we discover what can't be taken. In grief, we discover what we value most, and in healing, we uncover the kind of love and purpose that was never meant to come from status or approval, but from something far simpler: presence, integrity, and resilience. This is not a story about revenge. It's not a story about making sure someone gets what they deserve. It's a story about choosing clarity over chaos, self-respect over spectacle, and renewal over rage. It's about understanding that life doesn't always give us the plot we imagined. But sometimes the plot we're given shapes us into someone stronger, deeper, and more unshakable than we ever intended to be. To anyone walking through loss or betrayal right now, remember this: your worth is not in who walked away, or what they took, or how they tried to rewrite your story. Your worth is in what you carry forward, and how you choose to live in the after. Thank you for joining us for today's story. We're grateful for every one of you who listens, reflects, and shares these journeys with us. If this story moved you, or if you've walked your own path of resilience, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone, and your voice is part of what makes this community so meaningful. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter in our series of true, powerful stories. Until next time, take care, stay strong, and keep walking forward.